Hey y'all, it's week 24 of season 3 of the Andy Griffith Show. This week's episode title is Aunt B's Medicine Man. Barney, what's up this week?
Aunt B comes in the courthouse and says she wants to sit down because she says she feels faint. And then Andy comes in and says, "What's wrong?" And I tell him that Aunt D is just as sick as she can be. She says she just heard that Augusta Finch passed away, and she's upset because she's the same age that Augusta was. And Andy says that you're healthy, Aunt D. And she says, "Well, I may not complain, Andy." And so Andy offers to call the doctor for her, and she says, "No, all he'll say is that we're not string chickens anymore." And then she storms out.
And then on the way home, she sees a stranger in town selling bottles of what he calls Colonel Harvey's Indian Elixir, good for what ails you. So she buys 2 bottles.
And then she invites Colonel Harvey over for supper that night, and he accepts. And then before supper time, Andy and I are on patrol, and we see Colonel Harvey selling, so we stop by to see his presentation. And then once he finds out that Andy is the sheriff, he offers him a $3, and Andy says no. And I tell Andy, well, we can't hold in on a 603 or even a 115, parking next to our hydrant.
And then we see Aunt B playing the piano at home with Opie, playing real loud and fast and singing real loud and fast. Toot, toot, tootsie, don't cry. Toot, toot, tootsie, goodbye or something. And then you and Andy come in.
And we listen to her and watch her for a while. And then she goes in the kitchen. And Opie says, "Aunt D sure is feeling good, isn't she, Pa?" And Andy says she sure is. And then we hear a plate dropped in the kitchen, and Opie goes to help her with it. And I say, "I don't like to say this, Andy. If it was anybody else, I'd say she was tiddly." And then I see a half-empty bottle of the elixir in the hall closet. And I say, "Andy, maybe this will explain why Aunt D is feeling so good." So Andy tells me to run it over to Doc Andrews and have him analyze it. So I leave, and then Colonel Harvey arrives for supper. Of course, Andy and Colonel Harvey have already met. And then after supper, the Colonel compliments Aunt D on her cooking, and he does some cigar smoke tricks for Opie, and he talks about living among the Indians. He really lays it on thick. And Andy asks him how long he plans to stay in Mayberry.
But he doesn't get a straight answer to that question. And then Aunt B invites Colonel Harvey to address her Ladies' Aid Church Committee. And later you bring the analysis of the elixir from the doctor to Andy in the courthouse. Turns out it's 85% alcohol.
And I say, "There's your grounds. Selling plain liquor. Let's run it out of town. The guy's a grade A double-barrel phony. While we're stalling around here, he could be giving us the slip." But Andy doesn't want to right away because Aunt D has too much faith in him. He wants to prove it to Aunt D that the guy's a phony. And plus he says that Colonel Harvey right now is supposed to be at the Ladies' Aid Church Committee. And I say, "Oh, it's going to be a red letter day in Mayday if the whole Ladies' Aid Church Committee gets crocked." So I go over to the house, and they're all smashed. And Andy tells them they're all under arrest. And then in jail, he gives them coffee, and he tells them that they all got gassed. And then I run that phony Colonel Harvey into the jail. And then Andy lets the ladies go home.
And the next day, Aunt B comes in the courthouse saying she's just come back from the doctor, where he said that everything's okay with her, outside of the fact that she's not a spring chicken anymore.
And then Andy tells me I look a little pale, and I say, "You know, it wouldn't hurt to have Doc Andrews take a look at me, too. I've been having these palpitations, you know. I didn't tell you about that. Sarah, get me Doc Andrews. And hurry, Sarah. It's an emergency."
We'll see you next week for episode 25.